We have special coverage for you this morning here on CBC News Network, an in-depth look at the landmark ruling this morning by the World Court on the war between Israel and Hamas, one that will have implications on a global scale. The International Court of Justice will not order Israel to stop the war immediately, to issue a ceasefire. But the 17 justices are ordering Israel to take action to protect and aid Palestinians in Gaza. As we've had for you live here on CBC Morning Live, the ruling was read out over about 40 minutes. It's the court's first response to the broad genocide case South Africa has brought forward. South Africa is accusing Israel of acting with genocidal intent. That broader case, that core question of genocide, will continue, but will likely be years before a final ruling from the IJC. So this is an interim decision, and in a key part of today's decision, the justices rule that it is plausible that genocidal acts could be happening in Gaza before that ruling. So the International Court of Justice says Israel must immediately take a number of steps, 6 emergency measures, to prevent any genocidal acts as the war continues. Here is first reaction from outside the court from a Palestinian representative.
This is a historic day. Palestine welcomes the momentous order by the International Court of Justice. This order means that the court recognized the gravity of the situation and was convinced by South Africa's compelling presentation that was based on law and fact that there are plausible cause to believe that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. It means that the cries and suffering of our people in Gaza have been heard in the Great Hall of Justice. Israel failed. It failed to convince the court to dismiss the complaint to prove that it is not deliberately violating Genocide Convention. The ICJ judges assessed the facts and the law and issued their order. Israel now will stand trial accused of committing the crime of all crimes. We call on states to ensure that all provisional measures ordered by the court are implemented. States and governments have clear obligations in light of this order. First and foremost, they must make sure they are not complicit in this genocide. This is a good day for humanity. This ruling is in favor of international system based on law and against exceptionalism and double standards.
So that is the reaction on the steps of the International Court of Justice in The Hague from Palestinian representation. They were there to support South Africa, which has brought the case forward. We have first reaction from Israel as well. The Israeli government has called the case against it spurious, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has bluntly stated Israel would not follow any ceasefire order from the World Court, that no one will stop us, not The Hague, nor the axis of evil, and no one else. Here is Benjamin Netanyahu in his reaction immediately following the announcement from the court as he posted it on social media last hour.
Israel's commitment to international law is unwavering. Equally unwavering is our sacred commitment to continue to defend our country and defend our people. Like every country, Israel has an inherent right to defend itself. The vile attempt to deny Israel this fundamental right is blatant discrimination against the Jewish state, and it was justly rejected. The charge of genocide leveled against Israel is not only false, it's outrageous, and decent people everywhere should reject it. On the eve of the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I again pledge as Israel's Prime Minister, never again. Israel will continue to defend itself against Hamas, a genocidal terror organization. On October 7th, Hamas perpetrated the most horrific atrocities against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and it vows to repeat these atrocities again and again and again. Our war is against Hamas terrorists, not against Palestinian civilians. We will continue to facilitate humanitarian assistance and to do our utmost to keep civilians out of harm's way, even as Hamas uses civilians as human shields. We will continue to do what is necessary to defend our country and defend our people.
That is Benjamin Netanyahu, as he posted just moments ago. And again, the key question, as we've discussed this morning, this is a legally binding ruling. There is no appeal of what the ICJ has ruled here in this provisional ruling. It's interim ruling. But there is no method of enforcement either. So the question now, what will Israel do, and will it comply? You heard some of what Benjamin Netanyahu's intention is in that statement just posted. We want you to hear some of the ruling itself. As I mentioned, you heard it live here on CBC Morning Live in the 7 o'clock Eastern language. It is very legalistic language, but that's important. The Chief Justice, the president of the court, references the Genocide Convention of 1948. But here she is laying out the court orders for Israel. These are orders, once again, the 6 emergency measures, the provisional measures that include taking steps to protect Palestinian civilians and ensuring that more humanitarian aid flows into Gaza.
For these reasons, the court indicates the following provisional measures. 1. By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall, in accordance with its obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, in relation to the Palestinians in Gaza, take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention, in particular, A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group.
That is the president of the International Court of Justice. She is an American judge representing or presenting the opinion of the 17-judge panel. There were no unanimous decisions, but by very large majorities, the court has gone ahead with these 6 provisional measures and its orders to Israel. Let's bring in some initial reaction and assessment from our senior correspondent, Chris Brown, who is in Jerusalem.
Well, I think what's very key is going into this, Israel had said that this case that South Africa had brought was baseless. The United States had also said it was without merit. And the court has not ruled with them. They've in fact said there may indeed be merit, that some of what Israel has done in Gaza could possibly have broken the Genocide Convention. Now, they're saying that without prejudice in the sense that this case is going to go on for a very long time, possibly years, but at least on the very surface, they're almost like saying, look, you've established a prima facie case that you were correct to bring this, and there's at least something worthy here to look at. So I think at the very beginning, the Israeli government has lost that because, as I said, they wanted it thrown out. But on the other hand, as you just said, really, South Africa didn't get the key thing that it was asking for, and that was a suspension of the military campaign in Gaza. That perhaps is not so much of a surprise. They asked for 9 different provisional measures, and some of the other ones were granted. And just going through them, they have to take measures to improve the humanitarian situation. Well, Israel brought before the court evidence to show that it said shows that it was trying to improve the humanitarian situation, that it was allowing many hundreds of truckloads of aid going into Gaza. But in effect, the court is saying, well, you have to do more. You have to do more than that as well. It also said you have to preserve any evidence that might suggest that genocide happened. You have to keep records of it, and we're going to check up on you every month to make sure that you're doing that as well. And then they also suggested that you have to punish anyone who makes, let's say, genocidal remarks or incites people to genocide. And I think this is a very important point because in its ruling, the court pointed out some of the statements made not just by ordinary Israelis, but by the very most senior members of Israel's cabinet. Yoav Gallant, for example, the court cited his statement way back in October as saying, when they began the invasion of Gaza, I have released all restraints. We are fighting human animals, he was quoted as saying. So the court invoked a number of these statements from senior Israeli ministers. So again, even though the South Africans did not get everything they wanted, much of this, I think, will be very embarrassing for the Israelis.
Chris, one more in terms of reaction from Israel's national security minister, who's part of the coalition government on the right wing of things. On X, so on social media, this is what he tweeted. His reaction, hag schmag, which lets you think that some of the members within the Netanyahu cabinet are I don't know what that cabinet meeting, how it will go, but there will be some very strong opposition to taking the action that the International Court of Justice has just issued. So not explicitly a ceasefire, but again, measures to refrain from any acts that could fall under the Genocide Convention, ensure that troops do not commit any genocidal acts, also improve the humanitarian situation. So today, Chris, what will you be reporting on? What specifically will you be looking for as far as next steps?
I think we should really keep an eye on these discussions going on between the United States, Qatar, and Israel involving a potential hostage deal with Hamas. We understand that the head of the CIA, William Burns, is going to be flying in this direction to Europe and to the Middle East to try to personally broker and get this done. Benjamin Netanyahu is under an immense amount of domestic pressure here now to try to free these remaining hostages. The exact number is not known, possibly just over 100, but there's also some bodies of some hostages that have either died or have been killed. So we're going to be watching that because along with any possible hostage deal, there could come some kind of a pause, not using the word ceasefire, but some kind of a pause in the fighting. And how long will this be? There's been some suggestions it could be 2 months, some suggestions it could be 3 months, but it's going to be very, very interesting over the next number of days to see just how gelled up this goes. Hamas is asking for the release of all the prisoners, all the detainees that are now in Israeli jails. Those number in the thousands. So a ton of moving parts here, Heather.